All right, so now for this one, I'm going to do the slope and y-intercept from tables. On the first table, I did, so you know, I did write out all the different formulas. So for slope, the m, it's the delta y, the change in your y. So changes, you subtract the y values, and the delta x, which is the change in the x values, and simplify that. Or remember, rise over run if you're looking at it as a graph, but either way, it's still the y over the y over the x. And then on the graph, I did do like I did on the slope from a graph problem, where I highlighted the y-axis in pink and the line itself in that grayish color. Remember, the y-intercept is where the lines cross each other. The line crosses the y-axis, so right here. And you could have written it as whatever number that is by itself, or I just wrote it as an ordered pair because the ordered pair is important. It's going to help you finding the y-intercept on your table. All right, so if I get started on my table, the first one, now some teachers will tell you to go and figure out, well, what's happening from here to here and here to here and here to here and all of this. That's too many loops. Okay, so don't do that. If a teacher does tell you that, just ignore it and only, let me get rid of those because no, I don't want all of that. So get rid of those. I'm just going to need, just like I did on finding slope from 2 points, I only need 2 points. So I'm going to focus just on 2 of my ordered pairs. Doesn't matter which ones you use, so I'm going to pick these 2. Okay, so if I pick those 2 ordered pairs, I'm going to then look and see, okay, well, what's happening from here to here and here to here. So from -1 to 0, that's going to be adding 1. And from -4 to -1, that's going to be adding 3. And if you can't tell, you can always draw yourself a quick little number line. Sorry, it's kind of sloppy, but that's why it's quick. And so you would know if you start at -1 to 0, when you're moving this direction, you're adding to the right. So I'm adding, I went 1 space, and then from -4 over here, I went 1, 2, 3 to get to -1, and I went to the right, so I added 3. Okay, now put it together, the y, let's make sure you're looking at the columns labeled, the y over the x, you can leave it as 3 over 1 or turn it into 3. All right, so I'm gonna work the slope out again, but using the actual formula of y2 minus y1. Now, then you just decide whichever one you prefer. So if I go ahead and I label, this would be my x1, this would be my y1, this would be my x2, this would be my y2. So starting with the y2, that would be -1 minus my y1, which is -4, and my x2, which is 0, minus my x1, which is -1. So again, it's up to you, whichever one looks more convenient. So double signs turn into plus, -1 plus 4, different signs, find the difference, so subtract. Keep the sign of the 4 because it's larger. Double signs here, turn into plus. Well, a 0 minus 1 is 1. Notice we got the same thing. So either way, you can choose 2 points, labeling them x1, y1, x2, y2, and substitute it into the formula, or just do the arrows like I did and figure out what happened from one value to the next. So now for the y-intercept. I'm not going to get too much into it and see if, then I'll compare the first example and the second example so you can see how I'm getting the y-intercept here. Okay, so the y-intercept is going to be, if I wrote it as an ordered pair, it will be 0, -1. Okay, if you look at the table, you can see where I got that from. All right, but like I said, I'm going to compare the first example and the second example. So now I'm going to go to the second example so I can compare. But let me look at the slope. So I'll pick two ordered pairs. I'm probably going to stay away from that negative this time. So I'll go with these two. I'm going to find my change. So from 0 to 1, it went up 1, so plus 1. And from 3 to 5, it went up 2, so plus 2. My y number needs to go first, so 2 on the top over 1, or just 2. There's my slope. Now my y-intercept is going to be 0, 3. Now if you can see where I got that from in the table. Now comparing both of the y-intercepts, if you look carefully, what did both of them have in common? They have 0 in the x. So if there's a 0 in the x of your table, it's pretty easy to find the y-intercept. So wherever the x is 0, that's where your y-intercept is. Okay, so like if I go to the next example, I'm going to go backwards. I'm going to do the y-intercept first. Well, the y-intercept, I see here's my x of 0, so my y-intercept is 0, 0. Now to find my slope on this one, I'm going to use, oh, I keep forgetting that. Okay, I'm going to use these two. So from 0 to 5, it's going to go up 5, plus 5, and from 0 to 3, up 3. Y over x, so my y is 3 over my x change. That's simplified unless sometimes they get weird and they put it as a decimal. So that would be 0.6, but not very often, but in case. All right, so there's those ones. Now, when I go to the next examples, if you notice in these examples, in the x column, there's no 0. You could figure it out somehow, but honestly it's a little bit of a pain sometimes. So what I mean how you can figure it out is, so let's see, where would 0 go? 0 would fit in between here. So if it fits in between there, I would need to first then figure out, well, what's the change from one, what's the pattern basically in my numbers? So I see from here, let's say from 1 to 3, that's plus 2. So from 1 to negative 1, it's minus 2. Well, the 0 is in the middle there, so what would fit in here? Because when I look at the other side, so from negative 2 to negative 6, that went down 4, so minus 4. So from here to here, it went plus 4. But since the 0 is in the middle over here, I'm going to go half of the change. So if the change is 4, half of that would be 2. So negative 2 plus 2 would give me 0. So my y-intercept would be 0, 0. Now I probably lost you on that, but like I said, that is kind of interesting to do it that way. So I'm going to show you a different way to find the y-intercept, but in order to do the other way, we have to get the slope first. So when I find the slope, I already worked this out pretty much. So let me use these ones, and I'll put that together into my, negative 4 over 2. Simplifying that would give me negative 2. So there's my slope. Now you should hopefully know the slope equation, y equals mx plus b. So your m is your slope, and then your b is what we're going to figure out. So just to start, I'm going to use this formula, this equation, and substitute what I know. Well, I know the m, we just calculated that, of negative 2, and let me just keep the rest the same for now. So if you notice in the equation, there's a y variable and an x variable. What you could do to then help you solve for the b is you can pick any xy pair of numbers. So let's just go with, oh, not like that. Okay, let's highlight it. All right, so when I do this, I'm going to use those two numbers. So my y number is -10 equals -2. The x is the 5. And now there's the b. Now I have an equation I need to solve. So work out that's going to be -10 and add 10 here, add 10 here. And so my y-intercept, my b, was 0, which I got over here. So that's another way you can find your y-intercept from a table, first finding the slope. Okay, so let me try that again on another example. Hopefully this isn't too much for you, but all right, start with the slope. So if I pick a pair of x and y values, whatever you want, I'll go with these ones right here. And so let's find from 7 to 9, that's up 2, so +2. 4 to 7 is +3. The y over the x, so 3 over 2. I can leave it like that or change it out to a decimal, 1.5. So then if I do like I did on that previous one and choose one pair of xy values, it could be the ones I used to find the slope, or it could be any other ones. Goodness. So I'll use those. And so my equation, y equals mx plus b, start with the y equals, substitute in your slope, 1.5 x plus b. Now I chose that 5 and the 1, so that would give me 1 over here, 1.5. Okay, calculate this, we'll bring this down. 1.5 times 5, that's 367.5 plus b, and 7.5, subtract. This will give me -6.5. And yeah, you could have figured out where the 0 was in the x and all this and that and whatnot, but that would be, like I said, crazy. So my y-intercept is -6.5. If I wrote it as an ordered pair, it would be 0, -6.5. All right, so hopefully that helps a little bit. If not, of course, let me know.